Hello everyone, welcome back to the new episode of our tutorial series on blood bank management system. In the previous episode, we have successfully created business logic layer for our donors module, which contain getter and setter based on the database design. And in this episode, we will create data access layer for our donors module, and it will contain methods to insert, update and select data from database for our application. So without further ado, let's move to our tutorial. So first of all, let's open our project, which is blood bank management system, and I'll just double click on solution file to open our project, and it will open on Visual Studio IDE. And this was the donor BLL we created in previous episode. And to create a data access layer for our donor module, let's go to Solution Explorer, and on DAL folder, right click on DAL folder and click on add, and then click on new item and select class, and here we will give the name of our data access layer, which will be donor DAL, and then click on add or press enter. So I'll just click on add button, and here we will create method to insert, update and select data from database for our donor module. So the first one will be select method to select the database and display in our data grid view. So I'll create a region for this. So has region select to display data from database, data in data grid view, and we also need to end the region. So has end region, and inside this region we will create a method of data table type. So public data table select, that's it. Don't worry about the error, just hover over the error and click on show potential fixes and select the first option, which is using system.data, and it will fix our first error, but we still have one error. This is because this method requires a data table value to be returned, and we haven't returned any value yet. So let's create a data table object of a data table and return it. So create object of data table to hold the data from database and return it. So data table dt is equals to new data table, and we will return it, return dt, that's it, and it solves our error. And after the data table is created, we need to create an object of SQL connection to connect a database. So create object of SQL connection to connect database. So SQL connection con is equals to new SQL connection, and here we will need to pass a connection string, which we haven't created yet, but we need to create a SQL connection here. So before creating a method, we need to create a connection string. Create a connection string to connect database. It will be of static string type. So static string my connection string is equals to configuration manager dot connection strings, and here we will add the name of connection string that we created in app.config file. So I'll just go to Solution Explorer and open our app.config file. So here we have created connection string, so I'll just copy this one, Ctrl C to copy, and go to donor DAL, and here we will paste that connection string, and then connection string. That's it. Don't worry about the error, just hover over the error and click on show potential fixes, and using system.configuration. That's it. Now here we will pass connection string, and here just hover over the error, click on show potential fixes, and using system.data.sql client. And that's it. We have successfully created an object of SQL connection to connect the database. After that, we will write the actual code to select the data from database. For that, we will create a try catch block. So try, and then catch exception ex. Here we will display message if there's any exceptional errors. So message box dot show ex dot message, and just hover over the message box, click on show potential fixes, and using system.windows.form. And the last one is finally. In finally, we will just close database connection. So connection dot close. That's it. And in try block, we will create a SQL query to select the data from database. So write SQL query to select the data from database. So string SQL is equals to select all from TBL underscore donors. That's it. And after that, we need to create a SQL command to execute the query. So create the SQL command to execute the query. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command. Here we need to pass SQL query and connection, database connection. That's it. And after that, we also need to create SQL data adapter to hold the data temporarily. So create SQL data adapter to hold the data temporarily. So SQL data adapter is equals to new SQL data adapter, and here we will pass SQL command. I added extra s here, so I'll just remove it, and SQL command. And the SQL data adapter will have the data from database, but we need to transfer this data to our data table. So, and before that, we need to open the database connection. So connection dot open, and then pass the data from adapter to data table. So adapter dot fill and dt, we will fill the value from SQL data adapter to our data table. So that's it. We have successfully created a method to select the data from database, and now we need to create another method to insert data in our database. So let's minimize this region. So I'll create another region. So has region insert data to database, and I will end the region in region. And here we will create a method which will be of boolean type. So public boolean, not boolean, public bool, and it will be insert, and here we need to pass our BLL as well. So donor BLLD, and that's it. Don't worry about the error, just hover over the donor BLL and click on show potential fixes. Select the first option, which is using blood bank management system.bll, and that's it. And we still have one error, but don't worry about the error. We have this error because this method requires one boolean value to be returned. So let's create a boolean variable and set its default value to false. So bool is success is equals to false, and we will return it. So return is success. That's it. We do not have any error now. And between this, we'll write the code to connect the database connection. So create SQL connection to connect database. So SQL connection con is equals to new, and then SQL connection. Here we'll pass connection string, and after that we need to start our try catch block to add the query or add the code to insert data from our UI to the database. So try and then catch exception ex and display error message if there's any exception errors. So message box dot show ex dot message, and then last one is finally we'll close the database connection, close database connection. So connection dot close. That's it. And in try block we will write the query to insert the data into our database. So write the query to insert data into database. So we will create a string variable, string SQL is equals to, and here inside the double quote we will write the query, which is insert into tbl underscore donors, and then we'll pass the columns. So let's look at our columns. Tables tbl underscore donors. We don't need to pass value for donor ID because it is auto increment and it will be generated automatically. So we don't need to worry about this donor ID. So we'll start with first name. So first name, last name, email, contact. So first name, last name, email, contact, and then gender, address, blood group, gender, address, blood group, and after blood group we have added date, image name. So added date, image underscore name, and last one is added underscore by. This is all the columns we need to pass the value for. So I'll just select all the columns, Ctrl and C to copy, and after parenthesis we need to add another keyword, which is values, and open a parenthesis, and I'll paste all the columns here as well. So Ctrl and V to paste, and here before every column we need to add the sign. So this will be the values we'll be passing using parameters later. So just add the rate for now, and add the rate, add the rate, add the rate, add the rate, add the rate. So that's it. Now let's go to the new line, and here we need to create SQL command to execute the query. So create SQL command to execute the query. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command, and here we need to pass SQL and database connection. That's it. And now we also need to pass the value to SQL query. So we will write cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and then here we will write the value to pass on the column. So first underscore name d dot first name. That's it. And this first name @first name and this value @first name must be the same. And similarly we'll pass the values for other columns as well. So let's press enter, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value @last name, and then d dot last name, and another one is cmd dot parameters dot add with value @email, d dot email, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value here @contact, d dot contact, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value here we'll pass @gender, d dot gender, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value here @address, it will be d dot address, and another one is cmd dot parameters dot add with value @blood group, it will be d dot blood group, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and this one will be @date, d dot added date, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value @image name, d dot image name, and the last one will be added by, which is cmd dot parameters dot add with value, and then added by, it will be d dot, here it is, so added by. So that's it, we have successfully passed the value for all the columns. Now we need to open a database connection. So open database connection, and here connection dot open, and then we will create an integer variable to check whether the query was executed successfully or not. So int rows is equals to cmd dot execute non-query. That's it. And if the data is, or if the query is executed successfully, then the value of rows will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So let's check it out. So if the query is executed successfully, the value of rows will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So if rows is greater than 0, then query executed successfully, else fail to execute query. If the query is executed successfully, the value of is success will be true, else the value of is success will remain false. So is success is equals to false. That's it. So we have successfully created another method to insert donors in our database. Now we'll need to create another method which will be update. So let's minimize this region and I'll create another region which is region update donors in database, and our end region, and between this region we will create a boolean type method to update the donors in database. So public bool update, and we'll pass donor bld, and we will create a boolean variable and set its default value to false. So bool is success is equals to false, and we'll return it is success. That's it. And then we'll create SQL connection to connect database. So SQL connection con is equals to new SQL connection, and we need to pass connection string, and after that we'll start try block, try, and then catch, we'll have exception ex display error message if there's any exceptional errors. So message box dot show ex message, and last one is finally we'll close the database connection connection dot close. That's it. Now in try block we will create a SQL query to update donors. So string SQL is equals to update tbl underscore donors set, and then first underscore name is equals to first underscore name, last name is equals to last underscore name, email is equals to email, contact is equals to contact. Let's check out our database table. First name, last name, email, contact, and then gender, address, blood group. So gender is equal to gender, and then address is equal to address, and then blood group is equal to underscore blood group. After that, added date and image name. So added date is equals to add date underscore date, and then image underscore name is equals to image underscore name, and the last one is added by. So added underscore by is equals to added underscore by. And here we also need to add a where keyword in order to update the specific donor only. So where donor underscore id is equals to donor underscore id. That's it. This is the SQL query to update the donors in database. Now let's go to the new line, and here we will create SQL command to execute the query. So create SQL command here. SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command. We'll pass SQL query and database connection, and after that we also need to pass the value to our SQL query. We'll use parameters to pass the value to SQL query. So pass the value to SQL query. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value here @ first underscore name. So d dot first name, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value @ last name, d dot last name, and then cmd parameters dot add with value @ email, d dot email, and then cmd dot parameters dot add with value. Here we will pass contact, d dot contact, first name, last name, email, contact, and then gender. So cmd parameters dot add with value @ gender, d dot gender, and then address, cmd dot add with value @ address, d dot address, and then blood group, and then edit date. So another one is cmd dot parameters dot add with value @ blood underscore blood group, d dot blood group, and then edit date, cmd dot parameters dot add with value @ edit underscore date. And we actually don't need to pass the added date because it will be the same when we insert the new donor. So I'll just remove the added date from here also. So added date, I need to remove the added date. So added date, we'll remove the added date, and in image, instead of added date, we will pass image name. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value @ image name. So d dot image name, and the last one will be added by. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value @ added underscore by, d dot added by. That's it. And after that we need to open the database connection. So open database connection dot open. I almost forgot to pass the value for donor id as well. We also need to pass the value for donor id. So cmd dot parameters dot add with value @ donor underscore id, and d dot donor id. And after the database connection, we need to create an integer variable. Create an integer variable to check whether the query executed successfully or not. So int rows is equals to cmd dot execute non-query. That's it. that's it. It's cmd.execute non-query, and if the query is executed successfully, then its value will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So if rows greater than 0, then query executed successfully and the value of each success will be true, else fail to execute query and the value of each success will remain false. So that's it. We have successfully created a method to update donors in our database as well. Now let's create another method to delete donors from database. So I'll create another region and delete donors from database, and in region, and inside this region we'll create a method of boolean type. So public bool delete, and it will be donor bld. We'll pass donor bll here, and don't worry about the error here. Create a boolean variable and set its default value to false. So bool is success is equals to false, and we'll return it. Return is success. That's it. After this we'll need to create a SQL connection to connect database. So SQL connection con is equals to new SQL connection. Here we need to pass connection string, and then we'll start try block, try, and then catch exception ex, display error message if there's any exceptional errors. So message box dot show ex dot message, and last one is finally we will close database connection. So connection dot close, and inside the try block we'll write the SQL query to delete the donor from database. So write the query to delete data or donors from database. So string SQL is equals to delete from tbl underscore donors where underscore donor id is equals to @donor underscore id, and that's it. And then after that we will create SQL command to execute the query. Create SQL command. So SQL command cmd is equals to new SQL command. Will pass SQL and then connection, and after that we will pass the value to our SQL query using parameters. So pass the value to SQL query using parameters, and like in insert and update method we do not need to pass value for every column. All we need to pass is value for donor id. So cmd.parameters.add with value, and then it will be @donor underscore id. So d.donor underscore id, and after this we need to open the database connection. So connection dot open, and then we need to create an integer variable to check whether the query executed successfully or not. Create an integer variable to check whether the query executed successfully or not. So integer rows is equal to cmd dot execute non-query, not int, only execute non-query. And then if the query is executed successfully, query executed successfully, then the value of rows will be greater than 0, else it will be 0. So if rows is greater than 0, then query executed successfully and the value of is success will be true, else failed to execute query and the value of is success will remain false. So let's save it by pressing Ctrl and S, and that's it guys. We have successfully created method to select, insert, update and delete data in our database. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And if you have any confusion related to this video, then don't forget to comment. I'll reply as soon as possible. And in the next episode, we will add actual functionality to add, update and delete in our donor form. So till then, see you soon. Bye bye.